This unit in the internal business environment is all about teams and the use of teams in organisations. So first and foremost, we're going to look at the importance of teams. Businesses today couldn't function without successful teams. Lots of businesses nowadays have decided that as a way of moving forward, they've decided to use teams to be able to get jobs done quicker with a lot more success. And that's exactly what this says. Teams are needed to allow leaders to develop, to allow shared goals to be shaped and successes to be sought. Different ideas can be shared and solutions found more easily when teams are formed, because more heads are better than one, if you like, so it kind of works out that way. Another thing about teams is that they can be both permanent and temporary. So teams may be set up just for a period of time to carry out a task, and then when the task is finished, the team is disbanded. This happens in a lot of organisations where you've maybe got a project. Back at Hire we called it matrix structures, and a team will form based on people with a number of different skills. They come together and they perform the task that's to be carried out, and then at the end of that task or project or whatever, the team then disbands. We call that a temporary team. Other teams, therefore, they also are perhaps more permanent teams, and you may find that if you go to work in an office and you go to work with a team that are dealing perhaps with insurance policies or whatever, then it's pretty much a permanent team, and members will come and go, people will join, people will leave, but the team itself will be permanent. So in a traditional structure, teams will exist at all stages in the hierarchy. So we've got a number of different teams here. The one I've kind of talked about a little bit there was what is called an ad hoc team, and these can be formed as the need arises. So for perhaps to complete a one-off project or a piece of research and development. So maybe at universities, etc., teams will get together to carry out some research. Matrix structures, we've already mentioned this, consisting of employees from across the business, will form from time to time when a complex situation to a problem is sought. So that's a team that will be temporary because they will disband after the project is finished. Informal teams also add value to an organisation. So motivation writers talk about the importance of relationships between staff. We call them interpersonal relationships. And informal teams allow for these relationships to flourish. So it could be, for example, that people just get together, maybe to carry out a task. For example, in organisations, they might have a social committee or whatever, and there'll be a team of people who get together to organise on an informal basis, nights out, staff functions, things like that. So on this slide here, we're going to look at the difference between formal and informal teams. With formal teams, the objectives are clearly set. There are clear lines of authority and responsibility, so there will be a team leader. Specialist skills being brought together, as we mentioned earlier on with the matrix structure, and they can be temporary and permanent, as we spoke about. However, informal teams where people are maybe happy to be part of a group, so it could be, as I say, members of a social committee coming together to organise functions for the staff. They can be used to management's advantage because information can be carried from one person to another using what we call the grapevine. This is often how things get done. So people could be moaning about something, for example, when they're in their informal team, and it gets back to management, and it's something that perhaps management can address. Informal teams also improve motivation because staff can mix with other people, perhaps out with their own formal team, and this gives staff a bit more motivation to come to work and enjoy their work. And a big issue with them, however, is they can work against the business. This grapevine, as we call it, can actually be detrimental to a business in some ways because rumours can fly, stories can get told, and these people can actually maybe gang up, if you like, against the organisation's change policy. So they can be an issue. So the stages of development of teams then, there are several factors that encourage the formation of a team. The physical proximity of the team. Now this is made a little bit easier nowadays because you physically don't necessarily have to be close to someone in your place of work. Nowadays you can use Microsoft Teams, for example, or other online sources to enable your teams to work together and to come to solutions. Rewards can be attached to mixing with others rather than being alone. Okay, there's that sort of feeling of, well, I'm on my own here, I don't want to take a risk, I'm not enjoying my work because I can't run things past people. So these things can actually help you to mix with others rather than working on your own. They are emotional support in times of crisis, which is quite clear there, and there are clear objectives set for the group, so you kind of know what you're doing and everybody knows their position within the team, and we're going to talk about that in a wee minute. Now, Tuckman, a guy called Bruce Tuckman, he came up with a theory on group development, and he did a lot of work in teams. And he decided that effective teams must go through 5 different stages. He was an American university psychology professor. And some of you may be familiar with this already, but he was familiar with this group development called the forming, then storming, norming, performing, adjourning. And what you might have covered this if you've done higher admin, because we do teams in there and we talk about Tuckman's theory. So forming is basically the process where the team first come together. If you think about yourself getting to be part of a new team, you're a bit nervous, you're a bit anxious about joining the team, you don't want to ruffle any feathers, so you are quite kind of sit back a little bit and watch what's going on. You're trying to be accepted by the rest of the team. You're finding out about each other. You're finding out what your team's there together for, what task you're going to be doing. And that's when you may decide, like, who's in charge of the team, who is it that's going to take on responsibility for different roles. Some people may form relationships early on with some members of the team more than others, things like that. Now, what the company should do to support this stage of the team process, the forming stage, is they have to encourage the team to get to know each other through team building tasks, little icebreakers, things like that. They're there to try and create a relaxed and friendly atmosphere so that the members aren't as anxious. They have to let the team members know what expectations, roles and responsibilities they have. They're there to give them guidance on the task and set goals and make sure that staff understand what the goals are. And at this stage, the leader is very... The second stage is storming, and this is when the members are starting to establish themselves. You might find there are power struggles, disputes start to arise among team members who maybe don't particularly get on with each other. There's a battle for positions. Maybe some people are wanting to do one task that someone else wants to do. There is certainly some amount of influence and authority among your members. People are starting to express their views a lot more openly. It can be an uncomfortable stage because people are maybe starting to conflict with each other. There could be group conflict, there could be criticism about the way people are doing things, and this is quite important. So what can the organisation do to support this particular stage? What they can do is try to mentor the team. So someone can be a mentor and help the team solve or get through the problems. Encourage them to constructively criticise each other, but not in a nasty way. They're there to promote an open dialogue, trying to compromise, try and get the team members to find a compromise, right? Well, maybe they might be better at doing that task or job, but why don't you do this one? They can concentrate on issues about the tasks, not about the members. So try to keep the members focused on the tasks, not on any conflict with each other. And they're there to help promote the team goals again. The next stage is norming, and this is when your conflicts start to settle down. They start to become a bit more resolved. The tasks and responsibilities are now divided amongst the members. The members all have the shared expectations of what they've got to achieve, and they should be there to support each other and cooperate with each other. At this stage, it's important that the organisation encourages group discussion. They confirm boundaries and group roles, so make sure people know what they're meant to be doing so that there isn't any conflict. Maintain good communication between the members and help to ensure that everyone has got a shared vision, they understand the goal and they know where they actually fit into the team. The next stage is performing, and performing is when the boundaries have been well and truly set so the group can get on to the actual task in hand. They're now working together as a cohesive group. People are respected enough to get on with the task. If you've been given a role, then people respect that you'll be able to do that. They want success, the team members want success, so there's a commitment to success. You feel valued by your colleagues, there's more collaboration, decision making among the group productivity. Your group now has an identity, and morale and loyalty are now high towards your team or your group. Everyone is very much task and people orientated now. So in order to keep this going, the organisation can make sure that there's some background supervisory role just to make sure the targets are being met. You're only intervening when necessary. For example, if they have to introduce a new member, if something changes in the group. They're there to monitor performance from a distance, as I say, to make sure that the progress is continuing and make sure that the members have got resources to be able to carry out the task in hand. They should praise whenever it's necessary. They should set realistic targets and make sure that they're liaising with all the team members to make sure that they are feeling supported throughout this stage. The final stage then is adjourning, or we sometimes call it mourning, and this is when the task has been completed and we're now starting to disengage from the group and the task. Where the group breaks up or changes, members may leave or the management may disband the team. The team may have been a temporary team, and that means that they may be disbanding altogether. There's a period of mourning, which is really where we've got a dip in effectiveness until new norms are established. So if the team is a permanent team and they finish one task and moving on to another, then there might be that period, that lull till they move on to the next task. If it's a temporary team, then there will be the period of mourning because the team has disbanded. The task is now accomplished and goals are achieved. So what about strategies for support? The manager or the team leader should be playing a more external role. They might recognise team and individual success, so give them feedback through like appraisals, reviews, etc. And it might be a time now to distribute rewards, giving them praise, maybe a wee promotion, employee of the month, bonuses, all these sorts of things. Now looking at the characteristics of effective teams, a number of factors determine how teams can be effective in making decisions, and these are under 3 different headings. We've got structure, we've got objectives, and we've got members. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at all of these factors individually, and we're going to start off with structure. So team size is really important to teams, and Meredith Belbin was someone who was very into teams, and Meredith stated that the optimum team should really have a mix of talents and they should really be between 6 to 8 people. Now there's a reason for that, and the reason was that larger teams have got a wider range of skills and experience and there are more members to complete the tasks. However, it becomes more difficult to supervise a larger group, and communication problems and lengthier decision making can take place, and this can really hold the team back from coming to their final decision. With smaller teams, one member can dominate and there's a limited number of skills, so you've really got to watch that you're somewhere in the middle between the 6 and 8 people. You can't have this longer decision making, communication problems, maybe little sub-teams forming, but you also have to make sure that in a smaller team you don't have a dominant person. We are a team, so we should all be working together. However, obviously smaller teams are easier to manage. The second thing is about team roles, and having a variety of different team members performing different roles helps your team to be effective. So you're looking for a range of different skills. Meredith Belbin specified 9. There were initially 8 different roles that are necessary for a team to be effective, and this is something that's really important. And what Belbin said was, a team is not a bunch of people with job titles, but a congregation of individuals, each of whom has a role which is understood by other members. Members of a team seek out certain roles and they perform most effectively in the ones that are natural to them. So it's really important that team members pick a role that they feel is natural to them so that they can perform it to the best of their ability. And this next slide actually lists Meredith Belbin's team roles. The first one is a coordinator. And a coordinator is somebody who basically is a natural leader and is able to delegate and bring everything together. They should be confident and decisive, and they should listen to others. A plant is an ideas person. They're the problem solver. And what they should do is they're needed, but they might not be able to communicate their ideas well, but it doesn't matter because they're the ideas person. You've then got the implementer, and they're an enthusiastic team player focused on results. So they have to be disciplined and be able to turn their ideas into reality. Team workers, now they should all be team workers, but a team worker is a supporting player with strong interpersonal skills, and they are there to avoid confrontation and get on well and support others. The next one is the completer finisher, and this is someone that sees the task through to the end and making sure that everyone completes their job. This person solves problems and encourages others. You've got a resource investigator. They're the researcher. They're the person who finds out the facts necessary to carry out the task. They've got a shaper who's determined. They enjoy a challenge and they're not afraid of upsetting others if it means getting their way. You've got the specialist who's highly competent and will bring expert knowledge to the task. And you've got a monitor evaluator, and this person's logical and they've got clear objectives. They inspire others and bring out the team's strengths, and they'll be the ones who will decide whether the task has actually been finished effectively or not and whether it's going to work out. Now this next slide is just a little task on a Belbin questionnaire to determine your role as part of a team, and it's quite interesting to see where you fit into this. So that's something that you can do, and the questionnaire is on the server. The next task is obviously that we've got a couple of past paper questions here. Describe the different roles necessary to form an effective team, and you'll find that you've got them there with your Belbin, so you would really just be talking about them. And the second one is explaining the stages of group development, as in your Tuckman, and assess how this process can influence the success of teams in a business. And we've just covered those two things anyway. Now, the next thing to look at are group procedures, and for a team to be successful, there are a number of task and maintenance processes that need to be carried out. So task procedures are about achieving the team's goals and getting through the work. So it's really important that they look at these different factors here. It's important to identify the goals of the team. What are the team actually out to do? It's really important that information is gathered on how to achieve the goal, analysing the information and coming up with actions necessary to deal with that. Consult team members, and consultation obviously in a team is really, really important, so make sure they consult the team members to discuss any options available, and then making the decision on the best way forward and implementing it. And it's really important to obviously evaluate the effectiveness of the team, because that's something that we have to be considering here. The next thing then is the nature of the task, and the nature of the task is the type of task to be carried out, and that's going to determine the type of group that's formed. So large groups are often unsuitable for problem solving, as it's difficult to encourage discussion, creativity and even involvement. They're better for tasks that involve the dissemination of information. What you've got to remember is that large groups can then form into subgroups, and that becomes difficult about trying to carry out the task. So you've really got to make sure that doesn't happen. If the task is clearly structured, the required resources to do the job and how involved the team have been will determine the effectiveness of the team. So it's really important to make sure that the task is clearly structured, okay, because then it means that the team will be more effective. The next thing is the clarity of the task, and if tasks are clear, a group can operate in a more structured way. So if it's a bit woolly and the members of the team don't really understand what they're doing, then it can be difficult for them to go forward with the task and actually make it successful. A precise task will help a group through the forming and norming stages of group development, because that's when they really are concentrating on carrying out the task. Team members also have to have a shared purpose. This is where each team member must understand clearly the team's work and the role of each individual. So where team members are unclear about what's required, teams are less likely to be effective. So looking at the team members themselves, team members should be situated together in the workplace and should be given opportunities to take part in activities both inside and outside the workplace. Now, just what I was saying earlier on about virtual teams. Virtual teams do need to be brought together now and again to maintain relationships, so it's easy enough for them to work online with each other through, for example, a Microsoft team, but it would be good if they actually could get together face to face, although the majority of their work can be done virtually. The team members should have a sense of belonging, communication between members and dependency. So you do rely on your team members, your other team members, to be able to get on and do the task. There's also a sense of belonging, and a sense of belonging really just means that you feel part of the team. And to ensure this happens, organisations should allocate clear team roles. So you know what your title is, you know what your role is. Arrange team building activities, that brings you together and gives you a sense of belonging. Allow informal relationships to develop, so maybe people going for a drink after work or playing a game of golf together or doing things like that. Delegate appropriately so that staff members know what they're meant to be doing, and make sure that depending on what part of the task we're talking about, they consult the relevant people. We talked there about dependency between team members, and I think that's really important. Dependency will allow subgroups to develop, which can be okay sometimes. You may put people into subgroups to do things. Create accountability within the team, so the team are responsible for the task they carry out and how well it's done or otherwise. Arrange peer working and peer evaluation, so get people working alongside their team members to work together, peer working and peer evaluation, maybe commenting on how well each other has done their job. Mixed quality circles to evaluate teamwork, so that could be a way, we talked about quality circles, where you talk about things that can be improved. This is a way in which you can actually use these to evaluate the team's work. and make sure that you use specialisation and division of labour. If we remember that back from higher business, we're talking about staff concentrating on the tasks that they can do best, and that's quite important. We're now looking at communication among team members, and that can happen in lots of different ways: arranging meetings, uploading information onto the intranet, onto notice boards, updating Gantt charts, appointing an effective leader who will carry on the communication, minimise conflict. If there's less conflict, the team will communicate better and make sure there's regular reporting going on. Team building. They tend to improve productivity and motivation of team members. Now, team building, you can take your group on, as it says at the bottom here: paintballing, go-karting, having social events. These are all ways of building teams and making sure that teams work cohesively together. Team building, it should develop trust among members, improve communication, make sure everyone understands the goals of the group, and help individuals make decisions with the help of the group. Because they're team building, because they're working together more, it might be that they actually are able to understand the goals and they'll turn to other people to get help. Now, team conflict's quite important because there clearly will be conflict within the team and out with the team. An intergroup conflict is conflict between different teams. So this might be organisations who actually do a lot of things with different teams, and there could be some competition, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but there could be conflict. Maybe one team getting more resources than another, things like that, and this can cause a problem. But it can be resolved by moving members between teams. It could be you hold joint team building activities, so you're working on team building with different teams, or making sure that teams remember they are all working towards the organisation's wider goal. So yes, you're doing individual tasks in your teams, but you're all working for the company as a whole. Intra-group conflict is conflict within the team, and this can obviously be resolved by appointing a strong leader, having a clear disciplinary procedure so employees know their boundaries, having an open door policy, having regular team meetings, job rotation, where you might change staff round to get a wee shot at something else, even though you're talking about specialisation and division of labour, and have clearly defined team roles. Now, what we've got here is we've actually got a slide with advantages of team conflict and disadvantages. It may sound crazy, but there are some advantages to teams having some amount of conflict. Team conflict can bring issues to light which could relieve stress. It may encourage creative problem solving. A little bit of conflict could help people come out a little bit more and be more into solving problems. It can allow team members to be empowered. Team members can learn from different approaches because they're arguing about different ways of doing things. Informal relationships can form through conflict, and disputes over financial rewards can actually encourage increases in productivity. So if there is perhaps conflict, one team getting a bigger bonus than another team, it can actually encourage productivity to increase because they want to see themselves doing that too. However, if there is a lot of conflict within the team or between teams, it can lead to low morale and high absenteeism. You may find employees don't like working that way anymore and they choose to leave the company, resulting in high staff turnover. It can damage the company's reputation if they then go out and tell other people about the way the company runs. Poor communication can result in poor decision making. If there is conflict and staff decide they're not talking to each other, communication breaks down, that can result in poor decisions being made. It might be because of the conflict deadlines are missed and more mistakes are made. There can be more disciplinary disputes because of this. The workplace can just generally become a really stressful place, and it may require more supervision because staff are conflicting all the time. Now we're going to look at the team influence and organisation's effectiveness. So teams and how they would affect how successful or effective the organisation is. So the positive effects are effective teams. If teams work well, they can increase motivation and efficiency. This means the business will increase customer satisfaction and reduce costs. So what will happen is they'll have higher profits and a positive ethos among employees, which sounds great. Staff can also learn from each other and improve skills. You can learn from your teammates how to do certain aspects, and that will help to improve skills. The impact of this can be seen in an increased work rate and motivation of staff. Higher quality goods and services are produced as a result. So these things are all really positive. Tasks can also be completed to a higher standard when a mix of staff are involved, as everyone brings different skills and talents to the team. However, what about the negative effects then? well. Conflict might arise if team members don't feel that workload's been shared fairly. It's possible that some team members might rely too heavily on others because they're not very confident. It can be that teams can also become stale if the membership is not refreshed regularly. So, a change is as good as a rest, as they say. It might actually be better for them to refresh the team now and again. And a team without an effective leader may lose direction and focus and not be able to thrive. So it's really important that teams have a good leader to enable the team to thrive. The final slide here is about evaluating team performance and how you can do that. So you can use appraisals in different ways. Now, we talked about this at Hire, so you've got one-to-one, where the line manager identifies areas of strength and development needs of the team, not just individual people. You've got your 360 and peer evaluation, assessing colleagues' performance in the team, so they can ask your colleagues or your peers how they feel you have done as part of that team. And you can maybe use some form of self-evaluation to assess the personal performance in the team. So they could maybe give you some paperwork to fill out to assess your own performance. If the team has been effective, these should be some pointers. Sales will have risen, profits will have risen, the number of complaints will have gone down, absenteeism will go down, staff turnover won't be as high, ratios will be more favourable than that last year, your financial ratios, and staff and customer reviews will be favourable. Thank you.